Sport Talk with Sam Jordan. Keon Rose filling in for Sam Jordan this evening. Sam Jordan had to go handle some family matters. I'm sure he'll tell you all about it tomorrow when he returns. But for today, I will be handling all of the sports duties here, both this show and Clutch with Keon Rose, my own show that comes on after this one. So, I'd like you to stick around. We're going to talk some sports today, some NFL free agency stuff, just some general NFL news, because we've got an interesting Jonathan Martin story. And also some NBA talk, because it is March, and March is, I think, a really good time to start thinking about basketball. The tournament happens, and so you get to see a lot of these guys that are going to be in the NBA, a lot of these prospects on a lot of these teams that are contending. We didn't get to see Trae Young for very long. We didn't get to see Admiral Schofield for as long as I would have liked, or Mo Bamba, or a lot of these other guys, but you do still have guys like Marvin Bagley III at Duke and so on. So I think it's a really good time to start thinking about basketball. Yes, even the NBA, even though the playoffs won't be for about a whole other month. But that being said, I think it is a good time to start thinking about it. I have some NBA stuff because I hadn't been following the NBA as closely. To that point, football offseason extends all the way out to now. And I think that football, is a little bit more important to you all. So I focus more on that. But I don't know, for me personally, how I feel about the Warriors, the Rockets, and the Trailblazers. The Western Conference is really just a scary conference as a whole. But those are the three teams that I wonder about their for realness. So we'll get to that in a second. But let's start with the NFL stuff, right? Because I think we touched on it a little bit yesterday, but I didn't get to go in as deep as I would have liked, because the Jets, people are saying the Jets are crazy. And I think that this is too, I've just read a lot of the extra ideas around the Jets. People think that the Jets are absolutely crazy for what it is that they have done, moving up to get a quarterback in this draft. That obviously the Jets are not a quarterback away. And so it does feel insane to jump up and get a quarterback that early in the draft. I don't think that makes you crazy, though, right? And one of the arguments for the Jets being absolutely crazy is that, well, you only land on a third of these quarterback prospects, so there's no point in trying to go after one now. And sure, that is a good point. But where I differ on that is being a NBA or being an NFL quarterback, from draft to draft, you have different amounts of good quarterback play, right? So some drafts may give you more good quarterbacks than other drafts. And so there's some drafts that may give you no good quarterbacks. There's some drafts that are chock full of them, right? Like the 2012 draft, outside of RG3, you've got Ryan Tannehill, who when he was healthy, he was a starter. Andrew Luck, Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins. That was a good draft for quarterbacks. It really was. And then you had last year's draft. We're still not sure about it, right? So maybe it could be decent, maybe not, right? Deshaun Watson is the only one that I saw there that I really liked, and he got injured partway through the season, right? Like we don't know much about Patrick Mahomes. We still have to see the books out still on Mitchell Trubisky. But some drafts give you a lot in quarterbacks and some give you none. And this is one of those drafts, I think, that has the potential to give you a lot. And so the Jets are going, well, we've got to just try and get up there where the top four guys are, because you want a shot at Darnold, Rosen, Allen, or Mayfield. That's where it's at. And I think that if you think that any four of those guys could be a potential cornerstone, sure, you may not be a quarterback away, but it's not like you're going to ask these guys to go out there and play immediately. And I know that that's the thought because it's the Jets and they're terrible. Who else do they have at quarterback? Well, they did sign Teddy Bridgewater, and I believe that they are, in fact, holding on to the remains of Josh McCown, right? And like Josh McCown's 39 and he's not great. And he had a career year last year and they only won 5 games. But in terms of having a guy who can start for you, and then you take either your shot at Rosen, Darnold, Allen, or Mayfield, and let one of those guys be the heir apparent while you build the team for another season around him, is not the craziest idea that I've ever heard in my life. It actually makes a ton of sense to me. I mean, I understand we know that there are certain teams that just get slapped with a label. It's hard once you have a label attached to you to have it removed from you, right? If you are the guy when you go out with your friends that gets drunk and someone has to give you a ride and you are just insane, like that label is hard to remove from yourself for a little while, right? Like people still remember how crazy you are. Right? Like it's the whole, once a cheater, always a cheater thing. If you cheat on your girlfriend or wife, like that's a label that will stick with you forever. And the Jets are a team that have been swimming in incompetence for a long time. And I think the Jets and the Redskins and the Browns, and even to a certain extent, the Detroit Lions have been swimming in incompetence for so long that even when they do good things, even when they do smart things, we refuse to believe that they're good. Right? Like we refuse to believe that any of those things make any sense. Even though what the Jets have done here for once actually does make a ton of sense. Yes, they gave up a lot, but they gave up a lot to increase their probability of getting a guy at quarterback because you can't win without one of those guys. And I don't think that getting a quarterback is a quick fix. I think it is a absolutely valuable cornerstone of having a franchise that can win a Super Bowl. And we saw it in the Super Bowl, right? The two teams in the Super Bowl were, one, the Patriots, a team that has Tom Brady on it. And if you remove Tom Brady from that team, I'm not sure the Patriots make the playoffs. And two, a team that was led by Carson Wentz all year long, got amazing play from Carson Wentz, and then when it was time for Nick Foles to step in and take the reins, and I understand that there's a certain level of, well, how can you say that about the Eagles? Carson Wentz didn't even play in the Super Bowl. But Nick Foles played the games of his life. And I should point out that Nick Foles is once a guy who threw 7 touchdowns in a single game, right? Like one single game. And the only other 2 human beings who have done this are Peyton Manning and Y.A. Tittle. So it's not exactly like Nick Foles isn't in great company generally. We don't know how consistent Nick Foles can be, and if you gave him an inferior offensive coordinator, is Nick Foles any good? But it's obvious that with what the Eagles were doing, Nick Foles was a perfect match and a perfect fit. And it tells you, if you have a guy who can play the position well for you in the system that you run, you can win football games that maybe you shouldn't win, and maybe you even play above your head. And if you have the luxury of having a really good defense, that helps too. And the Jets are trying to build a really good defense, right? And they did a lot of things in free agency to do that. They've been drafting pretty well decently. Their head coach is Todd Bowles, who is arguably one of the best defensive minds in the NFL today. So, it's hard to argue that what the Jets are doing here makes absolutely no sense. I can't tell you whether or not what they've done is absolutely the right idea, but the people who are looking at the Jets and just scoffing at the idea that they would do this, you guys are wrong, and you know that, right? What they've done is not crazy. And what the Colts did, that's not crazy either. Right? Accepting all of those picks, because the more picks you have, the more you have to build with. And the Colts already have a franchise quarterback. Now, they may have broken him irreparably in Andrew Luck, but they already have a franchise guy. So this works for the Colts on multiple levels because they acquire a bunch of picks, and maybe, just maybe, they'll draft some offensive linemen and some guys who are bigger than T.Y. Hilton, because T.Y. Hilton's a great receiver, but man, the guy's tiny. The Colts have a bunch of tiny receivers. You can't have 2 T.Y. Hiltons. You're listening to all new Nooga Radio, noogaradio.com, 92.7 FM Sport Talk with Sam Jordan, Keon Rose filling in for Sam Jordan. So Richard Sherman negotiated his own contract, and there is a prevailing level of thought that Richard Sherman got absolutely worked over on this contract that he negotiated because he went in without an agent. Richard Sherman went into contract negotiations with an NFL team with no agent and came out making really not all that much money. But Richard Sherman thinks that he got a good deal, right? And I tend to believe Richard Sherman. The reason why I'm going to trust Richard Sherman on this is two things. One, Richard Sherman is smarter than me, and Richard Sherman is smarter than you. Richard Sherman went to Stanford. And sure, just because a guy went to an Ivy League school doesn't necessarily mean he's smart, but it's a pretty good indicator. Richard Sherman went to Stanford. They don't play around. You don't just show up at Stanford and play football. You have to keep your grades up too. And if you've ever heard Richard Sherman speak, he's very articulate and pretty eloquent with words when he's not yelling at you, right? So I believe Richard Sherman is smarter than all of us. And Richard Sherman said that he went, looked at previous contracts at his position, negotiated, because the NFL Players Association keeps a record of all the contracts negotiated, and that he went into the contract negotiations and he understood, he believed the nuances of everything. He did the research and he thought he came away with a pretty good deal. And one good point that he makes is that he was actually not guaranteed any money in his previous deal with Seattle. It was one of the reasons why Seattle found it so easy to cut Richard Sherman, was that they didn't have very much guaranteed money that they owed him in the first place. So all of that dead cat money didn't really bother them in any particular kind of way, which is why it was so easy for them to let him walk. And then Richard Sherman was able to negotiate at least $3 million of guaranteed money. So there's an advantage for him. And then if Richard Sherman were to hit the incentives in the contract that he himself has negotiated, he'd actually walk away with a pretty nice chunk of change. And so I think that Richard Sherman actually did make a good deal. And I think also you have to realize that you can't work over Richard Sherman, because Richard Sherman is the guy that is returning from a double Achilles tear. We don't know if Richard Sherman can still play. So Richard Sherman essentially has guaranteed himself, at least for the next year, $3 million, and we're still not sure if he can play. Right? Like, that's huge. Because that gives him a little bit of security and gives him a little bit of that blanket there, that in the event that he doesn't play up to his standards, or in the event that the injury reoccurs, because Achilles injuries, I mean, that's something that we haven't exactly figured out entirely, especially when you tear them both. And you can think of a number of athletes that have torn their Achilles. They come back, they're not exactly the same. You certainly can't jump the way that you did. Now, I think with Richard Sherman, it does help that he's a big guy. He's a tall defensive back, which is unusual. And that he uses his length and his frame, and he was never going to be the guy that jumps with you anyway, because he's already bigger than most of the guys that he's up against. So I think that helps. But I don't know that Richard Sherman necessarily did poorly for himself here. I think that he actually did pretty well when you consider the nature of his injury that he's returning from, and how unsure we are of whether or not he can play at the level that he was previously playing at. And I don't know if you can necessarily underestimate with Richard Sherman, just how well he's going to do, right? Like, because Richard Sherman's a competitive guy, as you know. The Michael Crabtree rant put him on the map. I don't think Richard Sherman's going to take this one lying down. I think that he's going to go out there and compete and really try and earn that money. And I think there's also a sense of pride that comes with negotiating a contract yourself. I mean, and those of you who do stuff for yourself know this. If you work on your own car, for instance, you know there's a sense of pride that you have when you're driving your car that the rest of us don't have when we're driving, right? Like, I changed my own oil once, right? Like, I haven't done it again, but you know, I had a little bit of time, and there was a pit that I could go to get it changed. I changed my own oil, which is not a big deal at all for those of you who really are handy with cars and car parts. But just the act of changing your own oil makes you feel a little bit manlier. You know, you stand up a little bit taller, you feel really good. And when you're driving your car, there's a sense of pride there, and you want to take care of it. And if you do even more than that, you know this. If you fix the stuff around your house rather than calling up a plumber, or rather than calling someone to do your roofing, if you do it yourself, there's an extra sense of pride there, I think. I would have to believe, you know, if you mow your own lawn as opposed to hiring the neighbor kid to do it. I mean, you've got your own sense of pride with all of this stuff that happens when you do something and make something yourself. Richard Sherman negotiated a contract himself, and I think that there's a greater sense of pride that comes with that. Obviously, a greater sense of pride is not going to stop you from being re-injured if your body is just going to be re-injured. But a greater sense of pride is going to make it such that Richard Sherman is going to do everything in his power to make all of his money. Because you hire an agent so you don't have to deal with all of that stuff. You don't have to look at your boss and go, I need more money, which is a thing that people have a hard time doing, right? Like, it's one of the things that Americans dread the most, actually. If you look at the rankings of things that Americans dread, is asking for a raise. The reason why Americans dread asking for a raise is because there's just something awkward about going into your boss's office and going, hey, this thing that you're paying me to do, I think you should pay me more money to do this. It takes a lot to be your own agent, and I imagine there's a sense of pride that would go along with that. You're listening to All New Nooga Radio, noogaradio.com, 92.7 FM. Sports Talk with Sam Jordan. I'm Keon Rose filling in for Sam Jordan. So the last NFL story that I really wanted to get into before we roll into the break, Jonathan Martin. And if you remember Jonathan Martin and Richie Incognito, when they were both playing for the Miami Dolphins, Jonathan Martin accused Richie Incognito of bullying him, which essentially got Richie Incognito suspended and then eventually released from the team. Jonathan Martin was released from the team not long afterwards. And both of them found other landing spots in the NFL, but Jonathan Martin wasn't in the league much longer after that. And he was working at a high school, at a private high school. And he put up an Instagram post with him and a weapon. He tagged Richie Incognito in the post and a couple of other people. And so he's being charged essentially for threatening Richie Incognito, because it did appear to be a threatening Instagram post. Now, I could sit here and comment on the nature of the world that we live in when people are being threatened via Instagram. I never thought that I would live to see the day, but that is not where I'm going with this. Where I would actually like to go with this is I wonder how crazy football players have to act. And it's not the comfortable conversation, but like, how crazy do football players have to act before we wonder how much the game is affecting how much football players act? Because I think that is a valid question to ask. Is the CTE and the head trauma in football causing guys to act crazy, or does football attract crazy people? I imagine that the answer is somewhere in between. You can give me your answer, 423-800-8949. That's 423-800-8949. I'd love to hear your answer to that question. But I think football does attract crazy people. I think it does. I hear stories all the time. Charles Barkley tells a really great story of the times that he has hung out with athlete friends of his. And the football guys, if you ever get into something with a football guy, you insult a football guy, you insult a football guy's girlfriend, he can't let it go. He can't let it go. The baseball guys can let it go. The basketball guys can let it go. The football guys can't let it go. Like, and there's something to that. We are asking people to play in a game where they hit each other really, really hard for 60 minutes every week for the course of an entire NFL season. Like, there is a personality that it takes to do that. Because I tried out for football in high school. Now, granted, I was very undersized. I believe my freshman year when I did try out for football, I was maybe 5'3", 5'4", 115 soaking wet. Like, it wasn't a smart idea, but I lived in Texas and I loved football like everybody else loved football. And I thought, well, I could be a receiver. I could be speedy and play on the outside. Maybe I wouldn't get hit too much. I took one lick in practice and I thought, I'm done. I quit. I don't have the mentality for football. There is a different mentality for the guys that do that. And I don't know exactly what it is, but there's also a certain level of, we've seen the evidence now that the guys who play this game for a long time, and you play from Pee-wee football on up, the hits to your head start to change your personality. And we've seen it with guys like Junior Seau, I think is the most drastic example, but Rob Baronis, who played for the Titans, I think that he's a really good example as well. We've seen it. And so I don't know how far stuff has to go before we start to really question that. And I don't know if there's anything you can do about it, but I do think that we could go with more awareness on the front end for both fans and people who want to be involved with players and parents who want their kids to be involved with football to say, hey, this game could do some permanent damage to you. Maybe we do flag football for kids until high school or until college, something something, because I think something actually has to be done, and we do need to seriously entertain the idea of an answer on that. But what do you think? 423-800-8949 is the Nooga Radio phone line. I'm Keon Rose filling in for Sam Jordan on Sport Talk with Sam Jordan here on 92.7 FM, Nooga Radio, and NoogaRadio.com.
Chattanooga Radio, Digital FM 95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM's news now.
VW Chattanooga will build the new SUV. It will be a 5-passenger SUV based on a 7-passenger Atlas already in production at the Chattanooga plant. VW is expected to invest about $340 million in the Chattanooga plant to expand production. North Carolina authorities say 76 people have been arrested in 8 southeastern states on charges of child pornography or exploiting children. In Tennessee and Georgia, a number of suspected offenders were arrested, ranged in age from 17 to 73, include a postal worker, a mechanic, daycare administrator, and even a magician. One of the buildings of the Forgotten Child Fund sustained thousands of dollars worth of damage after someone pummeled right through. The applications building on East Main is boarded up to cover the damage, the cost estimated at about $70,000. Val St. John for Nooga Radio News Talk 92.7 News Now.
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio, Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM.
Expect fair to partly cloudy skies to continue through your nighttime. Cold overnight, lows mid and upper 20s. Now for your Wednesday, look for some sunshine with a breeze out of the north, though. Quite cold, highs up around 40 with more mainly dry and cold weather expected through Friday. Celebrate the new year with Dixieland Fireworks, locally owned with the largest selection around. A Black Hat dealer with the lowest prices in Dixie. Dixieland Fireworks, just off I-75 on Ringgold Road, East Ridge. And I'm Storm Team 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Hoare.
Chattanooga Morning News with Russ and Val. Weekdays from 6 to 9 a.m. on Nooga Radio, 92.7 FM.
They're all under $10,000.
$10,000.
That's right. Powerful V8 Hemi cars under $10,000 at Southern Fleet Sales in East Ridge. But you got to get there now for the best selection. These are retired cop cars. And man, are they fast. You want to look really cool. You want a fast car for under 10 grand. Then get to Southern Fleet Sales in East Ridge. That's not just a V8. It's a V8 Hemi cop car. SouthernFleetSales.com. 3900 Ringgold Road, East Ridge. Oh, man, rush. I've got to get stuff for the party. Where can I go that's going to give me a wide selection of beer, wines, and spirits? Oh, I've got it. I'll go to Harry's Wine and Spirits, Signal Mountain. Maybe East Brainerd Wine and Spirits in East Brainerd. I could go to Riley's Wines and Spirits in Hickson. Wow, look at the huge selection in here. Look at these great prices. Amazing. Oh, yeah. I'm going to find something for my lady, too. I'm going to make this party a success.
Make your party a success when you stop in at Harry's Wine and Spirits in Signal Mountain, East Brainerd Wine and Spirits in East Brainerd, and Riley's Wine and Spirits in Hickson.
Mom's Furniture, her boxes of paperback romances, Mom's Estate. Oh, call Dan. Dan will help you get on with your life. Let Dan clear the old house. Take care of everything. He'll hand you a nice check. 314-4034. Dan the Cleanup Man. 314-4034. In this moment, who has your back? Do you know the name of your insurance agent? Does your agent know your name? Or would you call a 1-800 number that connects you with whom? Another state? Another country? Get a local independent insurance agent with Auto Owners Insurance. Someone you can call when bad stuff happens. In this moment, get an agent who will protect you in that moment. Let Goss Insurance in Chattanooga help you today. GossInsurance.wordpress.com. Goss, representing Auto Owners Insurance, the no problem people. GossInsurance.com. Goss. GossInsurance.com. Representing Auto Owners Insurance, the no problem people. 875-2500. 875-2500.
Your car is broken or about to be, so the problem is, who do you trust? I wouldn't go any farther than Christian Brothers Automotive in Hickson. Come in today and take advantage of the new special. It's an oil change with synthetic oil. At $39, that's a steal. Synthetic oil makes your car or truck last longer. Some restrictions apply. At Christian Brothers, a great shop with a 2-year or 24,000-mile warranty. You decide. Free shuttle service, Class A mechanics. Local owner, nice difference. A synthetic oil change, $39. Wow.
Nooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM knows your opinion is important. So call 800-8949. Agree or disagree? Call 423-800-8949. 800-8949. Nooga Radio, 92.7 FM and 95.3 HD4. News Talk Nooga Radio. It's the moment you've been waiting for. Sam Jordan's Nooga Radio, 92.7 Sports. Now.
Hello, Chattanooga. You're listening to all new Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com, 92.7 FM, Clutch with Keon Rose. Thank you for joining me today. It's not the Clutch with Keon Rose. Wow, just fell into that one. It's actually Sport Talk with Sam Jordan. Keon Rose filling in for Sam Jordan. But Clutch with Keon Rose is next if you want to stick around for that. But I want to talk some NBA. It is the time of year to start thinking about the NBA. It's March. It's basketball. I think we're going through that lull now. We haven't quite gotten to the NFL draft yet. We'll have the Masters to talk about next month. So, we're going to have stuff. But I do think it's time to start thinking about the NBA, in large part because the playoffs are right around the corner. But not only that, we haven't decided any of that stuff at all. And I think that that's unusual, I think, for the NBA a little bit, because it feels like in the NBA generally, that we have 1, 2, 3, at max 4 teams that we think are going to be in the finals. And it's always whatever team LeBron is on in the East, either Miami or Cleveland. I mean, we don't really think that a lot of these other squads have a chance, though I actually do believe in Toronto a little bit this year. And I know we've been burned by Toronto before, but this Toronto team does look different. They look like the real deal. But before we really get into all that, but like the Western Conference is just so wildly in flux. You should be able to pencil in the Warriors, right? Like that's the best squad in the league. And I don't think it's really, I don't think it's close, but they play like it's close. And I think the Warriors have lost some of that edge. And I think this happens all the time, by the way. It's so hard to repeat in the NBA. And that's sport. Basketball and baseball specifically, but basketball in particular is such a grind. Because at least in baseball, if you're a pitcher, you don't pitch every single day. And I mean, you can do stuff with hitting lineups in baseball to give guys days of rest. You don't really have that in the NBA. And I understand that the NBA has done some stuff to tweak the schedules to make it easier for guys on their bodies. But you really have to go through the toil of it. You really do have to go through the grind of it. You don't necessarily get that time off. And so it's hard to focus if you're the Warriors, right? And we've seen Steve Kerr do everything to try and keep his team focused. He even had one game where he stopped coaching and let the team coach, and they won the game. They played the Suns, I believe, beat them by 40. But he has to do all of this extra stuff to keep these guys engaged because they want to just say, hey, wake us up when the playoffs start. And that's dangerous, right? We say this about LeBron James every year and whatever team he's on. Can they flip the switch when the playoffs start? Well, I think we've seen from LeBron 6-7 years now. Yeah, the switch can get flipped when they need to. He's gone to 6 straight NBA finals, 7 straight NBA finals. The switch can get flipped when it needs to get flipped because LeBron James is the only one that needs to really flip. He flips his switch and everybody follows. I don't know if the Warriors have that LeBron guy on their team, the guy that we all follow, right? I don't know if Kevin Durant gets into playoff mode and then everybody's getting into playoff mode. You know, I don't feel that. I don't feel that about Steph either. I certainly don't feel that about Clay. And Draymond would be the guy. But Draymond looks soft this year. I mean, can we talk about how soft Draymond looks? I mean, it's not like he doesn't care. It just looks like a decline. Like he just doesn't have the edge. And I guess it would be hard to be what Draymond Green has been emotionally for 4 years in a row because they've done this for 3 years now. And there's a certain level of just bleep you that has to happen and has to be in somebody's personality in that locker room. There's a reason why guys like Matt Barnes and Kendrick Perkins just sort of floated around from team to team their entire NBA career. It's because they were like they're just like the FU guys. You got to have that on your locker room somewhere. LeBron has figured out that it's got to be him. He's got to be the guy or his teams lose. So he just kind of saves his energy for the playoffs and then he flips it. I don't know anybody on the Warriors that has that personality. I'm not saying these guys aren't competitors because we saw what Kevin Durant did in the NBA Finals last year, stepped up in the biggest of moments, made big shot after big shot. We've seen what Steph has been able to do. Clay is absolutely cold-blooded, but I look at a basketball team where there isn't anybody there with enough edge that scares me. Draymond has always been the guy, and this year, I don't know. I have no idea. He's not healthy, so that's a start, right? Like, he looks like he's like 80% of himself. He does not look healthy. But then, on top of it, I think the grind of NBA seasons are getting to him. And when you are a team in championship contention, as the Cavs and the Warriors have been year after year, your seasons are much longer than everybody else's season. So the grind is even worse for you. And I think that's dangerous. I don't think that just every team can flip the switch and be ready to go once the playoffs come. And I think that Cleveland gets a little bit of a pass too, because they do play in the Eastern Conference and their first, few series, they might play somebody that maybe is a little bit tough, but not tough enough to beat them. Even though this is historically LeBron's worst team since he was last kicked out of the playoffs in the first or second round. This is actually his worst team, but there's still nobody in the Eastern Conference good enough to beat them in the first round. The Cavs have time to get it together. Golden State does not have time to get it together. The top 6 teams in the Western Conference, it feels like, and it feels like they never lose, right? It feels like every time I tune in, somebody is on some form of a winning streak, whether it's Anthony Davis and the Pelicans or the Jazz or the Trailblazers had that, 17-game streak that they had going on before Toronto snapped it. It just seems like somebody isn't losing in that. And it's very possible that if you're the Warriors and you mess around, even if you get the first seed, you could catch the Spurs at the 8. You could open the playoffs against the San Antonio Spurs. And look, it's not like the Spurs are filled with big names, but God forbid they get Kawhi back in time for the playoffs and you're still goofing around. You're going to be toast. Right? Like that, to me, that seems very obvious. So you're going to be absolutely toast. I don't think that the Warriors have any of the leeway that Cleveland has. And yet I'm seeing a bunch of bad Warrior games where the Warriors are dropping games to teams that they ought to just beat up. It's not a good look. And I don't think that team can afford to mess around. And maybe you get out of the first round because the Spurs don't have anybody that you recognize outside of LaMarcus Aldridge, and say Kawhi doesn't come back. Say you escape San Antonio in the first. I mean, you still are at some point going to be on a collision course with Portland, who's playing really well. And we'll talk about them in a second. And Houston, who just looks really good. And I was wondering how the Chris Paul, James Harden thing was going to fit together. And it did struggle early, but it's starting to click now. And it looks pretty terrifying. And the Rockets look like a tough team to beat. The Harden-Paul experiment is starting to actually work. And it looks devastating. I don't think you can be on your B game or your C game. You've got to be on your A game against that squad. And say you don't wind up playing them, say you wind up playing Portland, one of the best backcourts in the NBA. Who is better right now than CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard? Right? I might give you Steph and Clay. I might give you Lowry and DeRozan in Toronto, but I wouldn't give you much else. Not really. I mean, who else? 423-800-8949. I really want to know. I don't think the Warriors can afford to mess around. And I see the Steph Curry jerseys around Chattanooga. I see the kids around here. They love him. How devastated would those kids be? How devastated would your kid be if Golden State got bounced in the first or second round. Because we're talking about a different NBA playoffs. And I'm also talking about something that I feel like is distinctly possible. Now, I'm not willing to just write off the Warriors. I think that would be silly. That you can't just jump to that particular conclusion. But I am saying that the Warriors are playing a dangerous game, and one that if they are not careful, I don't believe that they can win. I don't know. I don't believe that they can win it. You're listening to all new Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com, 92.7 FM. What to make of the Portland Trailblazers, Damian Lillard. That team is playing inspired basketball, and they look good. They look good defensively, which they've never done, and I don't know why that they all of a sudden look good defensively. They are the same squad from a year ago. I think that they also look absolutely potent in fourth quarters of games. Damian Lillard, I think of this season looking very much like Mr. Fourth Quarter. I'd like to just hand him that title right away. I don't know if there's anybody playing better in fourth quarters than Damian Lillard, and he just sort of takes over the game. And I always thought that Damian Lillard was going to be a very, very good point guard. I would never have put him in that class of greatness, but I might have to. I might say that Damian Lillard he could be a very great point guard, because all the things that we give Steph credit for doing, Lillard does. Lillard does, and he does it on a team that needs it more at this point, right? And he's become a much better defender, which I think is huge, because I never thought he could be that. I thought Damian Lillard, for all the scoring that he does, is a turnstile defensively. But no, he's actually tightened that up a lot. And the Trailblazers look like a tough out. I don't know how good they are, but they're a top 5 NBA team. I don't know how good they are in terms of could they legitimately be a championship contender. You put Golden State and Portland, or you put Houston and Portland up against each other for 7 games, for a 7-game series. Is Portland actually the better team? That's harder to tell. I'm not sure. But they are a top 5 team in this league, so you've got to take them seriously. And I think winning streaks matter. You know, I don't think that, I think you can overinflate a winning streak, and that 17, 18 game winning streak that they had earlier in the month, I think you can overinflate that. I think you can take that to a level where you are suggesting that the Trailblazers are the team that we should all be writing in for the NBA Finals. I don't think so. I still think that you'd have to write in the Warriors. But as I mentioned before, I don't think that the Warriors are clicking on all cylinders right now. And it's hard to tell if they will be once the playoffs start. That's not a guarantee. And if they aren't, oh boy, if they aren't, you have a problem. You have a real problem with the Portland Trailblazers. You do. Right? It's going to be tough. I mean, I used to work in retail, okay? And it's very easy, I think, to get lax in retail and sort of cut corners on work and just do the bare minimum. But, you know, one day the general manager, the regional manager of the store, you know, I used to work at Office Depot. Like one day the general manager of the store walks in. He owns a few stores in the area, and suddenly you're trying to be a good employee when you haven't been trying to be a good employee. Can you do it? Yeah. If you know what being a good employee looks like, yeah, you can do it. Should you be doing your best all the time? I would think that would be the best option for you. Then you don't have to pretend to be a good employee because you've already been one. Right. And it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to flip that switch, right? Like you do something and you've been cutting corners for months, and then the general manager of the store shows up. Right. And some of you know what I'm talking about. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. That he shows up and you're trying to pretend like you have been doing this all along. And you know damn well you have not been doing any of this all along. It's a tough spot to be in. It's an absolutely tough spot to be in. You're listening to all new Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com, here on 92.7 FM. So LeBron was right. LeBron said that the games were too close together. And he wasn't the only one saying this, by the way. But LeBron specifically made a very big stink about how close the games were together and that the NBA needed to space these games apart to take away the wear and tear on guys' bodies. And LeBron James has never played, or not all, has never, but he hasn't played all 82 games in an NBA season in a very, very long time. And so I think he was complaining about that. And I remember last year, he got a lot of flack from all of the old dudes. You know, the old dudes that always talk about back in my day. They were, you know, talking about how guys in today's league are soft and how they don't know how to be tough. And we would never have done this. Never mind the fact that guys are bigger, stronger, and faster than they've ever been. And this is taking a bigger grind and a bigger toll on all of their bodies than ever before. And LeBron is the best example of guys are bigger, stronger, and faster now than they've ever been. We've never seen a LeBron before. Scottie Pippen was close, but I don't think we've ever seen a LeBron really in terms of just a physical force and to be able to carry the weight that LeBron does of his own body up and down a basketball court for 82 games in an NBA season for the, 13 years that LeBron has been doing this now? 12, 13 years that LeBron has been doing this? To be able to do that consistently, I think is just asking a whole lot. And so the NBA did. The NBA acquiesced. They moved the games further apart. They removed a lot of those annoying back-to-backs. I think we still have a few, but we don't have nearly as many as we used to. And sure enough, two things are happening. One, LeBron James is on pace to finish all 82 games. He's on pace to start all 82 games in an NBA season for the first time in forever. And also, we're starting to see that playoff mode LeBron before the playoffs, when guys don't have to worry about resting through actual NBA games. They can actually play, right? Because now the rest is built into the schedule. And it's one of those things that when you see the effect that it's had, because I think we have seen better games than we've ever seen. So when you see the effect that it's had on a lot of these games, when you see the effect that it's had on LeBron James, when you see the effect that it's had on Toronto, I think it's done wonders for Toronto because Kyle Lowry gets injured very often. I think it's done wonders for a lot of these teams that have lost players. I think it's done wonders for the Pelicans because now there's not such a load on Anthony Davis. I think it's done wonders for the Wizards, who lost John Wall. There's not such a load on Bradley Beal. I think that it actually helps the NBA and we actually get a better product. And one of the things that the NBA was actually worried about were teams resting players during NBA games. Like, oh no, here come the paying fans. How do we get the paying fans to be happy with the product that we're putting out if teams are resting guys through these games? And I think you've solved that a little bit. I think you have. And I think LeBron James was right. I absolutely think he was right. And you got to give him credit for that one because LeBron James did most of the whining behind that. And he was heavily criticized for that whining, except, oh, look, it made the entire game of basketball better. Yeah. You're listening to all new Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com, Sport Talk with Sam Jordan. Keon Rose filling in for Sam Jordan here on 92.7 FM. And speaking of which, the NBA has another issue about getting product out to the paying fans. And we didn't get to cover this much last week, but the NBA has had a problem with tanking. And the teams that are tanking are benching guys that could help their teams win games, possibly, but they want to try and get that number one overall pick in the draft by having a very bad team. So you just go ahead and bench guys that maybe could help you win, start a lot of young guys who are really inexperienced, and they could use the experience, but also they're inexperienced, so they're bad. And it makes for some bad basketball, right? And the NBA has fined the Chicago Bulls. And I think that the NBA is wrong for this one, right? I think that we're on a bad spot. There's a potential slippery slope that comes with the notion that you are going to fine teams for not playing the lineup that you think that they ought to be playing. Where's the line on that? Like, there's already so much gray area in the conversation for what a team should and shouldn't be doing and what a team can and cannot be helping. And I understand the NBA knows, okay, there's a contract here with the paying fans that come to see these games that you don't want to put a garbage product out on the court. I get that. But if this team, let's say, thinks that they can get a number one overall pick, then they're trying to put out a better product long term. And you've incentivized them to try and do that by having a draft that works like this. And I don't think you'll ever get rid of tanking in this way. I don't think it's possible. In any sport in which the worst team gets to have the first pick of the best new players, in any sport where that's possible, you're going to have tanking. And you can tweak the percentages of the ping pong balls. You can tweak the number of teams in the lottery. If the worst team gets the best pick, you will always have tanking. And it's unavoidable. It's unavoidable in basketball. It's unavoidable in baseball. It's unavoidable in football. It's unavoidable in all of these sports that do this. And you can't fine teams for using your own method that you allowed them to have, because it puts a bad product out there, because you can't define when a team is good or when a team is bad. You're listening to all new Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com, 92.7 FM, Sport Talk with Sam Jordan. Keon Rose filling in. Clutch with Keon Rose is next.
Chattanooga Morning News with Russ and Val. Weekdays from 6 to 9 a.m. on Nooga Radio, 92.7 FM.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
Severe weather slammed the Tennessee Valley last night. Storm shelters opened and schools let out, but the damage was minimal. EPB working overtime to get the power restored. Over in Alabama, the death toll continues to rise. The Forgotten Child Fund was smashed up. One of the buildings for the Forgotten Child Fund sustained thousands of dollars worth of damage after someone pummeled right through. A suspect has been arrested, charged with driving without a license and driving without insurance. About $70,000 worth of damage was done, but they say that's not going to stop them from helping children this Christmas. The city's looking for solutions to the homeless problem. Mayor Andy Burke, city staffers, and representatives of several agencies created a new interagency council on homelessness yesterday afternoon. This comes after Chattanooga pushed for tough crackdowns on panhandling with a $50 fine for the less fortunate. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News Talk 92.7 News now.
95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM.
Expect fair to partly cloudy skies to continue through your nighttime. Cold overnight, lows mid and upper 20s. Now for your Wednesday, look for some sunshine with a breeze out of the north, though. Light cold, highs up around 40 with more mainly dry and cold weather expected through Friday. Celebrate the new year with Dixieland Fireworks, locally owned with the largest selection around. A Black Hat dealer with the lowest prices in Dixie. Dixieland Fireworks, just off I-75 on Ringgold Road, East Ridge. And I'm Sworn Team 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Hoare.
The Tennessee Valley's news talk leader, Nooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. Broadcasting live to over 1 million souls in Chattanooga, the Tennessee Valley, and beyond on frequency modulation 92.7. Sean Hannity, 25,000 watts on digital FM 95.3 HD4. CBS Radio News, NASCAR, Bloomberg Markets, David Tulis, streaming strong at NoogaRadio.com. Live on YouTube and Facebook. Nooga Radio, News Talk 92.7. Chattanooga Radio.
For car care you can trust, visit State Line Car Care in East Ridge. With 39 years in the automotive industry, owner Tracy Matthews and his professional staff treat everyone like family and every vehicle like their own. From brakes and tires to engines and transmissions, State Line services all makes and models. A standard oil change is just $24.95, and brake, AC, or engine light diagnostics are free. Open weekdays 8 to 5, Saturdays 9 to 1. State Line Car Care, 1416 St. Thomas Street in East Ridge.
Are you backed up?
Yep.
Are you blocked up?
Yep.
Do you need some help right now?
Yep.
Don't wait. For fast service, call Keith Plumbing now. K-E-E-F-E. Keith Plumbing. Don't wait. K-E-E-F-E. Plumbing.
Yep.
Okay, you've got the girl. Now it's time to take it to the next level. The Ring. The only place you need to know and go is to Goss Company Jewelers. Not only do they sell retail jewelry, but offer custom jewelry too. You want something unique and personalized? Charlie Goss can do it. Charlie will guide you through the process of finding the perfect ring. Your best girl deserves the ring from the best in the business. Trust Charlie Goss at Goss Company Jewelers, behind Chili's on Gun Barrel.
Want a business phone system that gives you Outlook integration, Salesforce integration, smartphone integration? Why desk sets and expensive lines? Turn smartphones into a cohesive business system. Call Signal 619-1200. Signal Voice and Data 619-1200.
For years, you have heard these words: cash, 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 and more cash. Now, Rick wants you to buy on U.S. Gold American coins. Are you tired of making 1% on your investments with the banks, even 2 or 3% at best? Well, don't miss out. Stop by Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds at 5301 Brainerd Road in Chattanooga. Buy American. Buy now. Gold is on the rise. Certified U.S. Gold American Eagle coins at Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds, 5301 Brainerd Road in Chattanooga.
Truex Jr. is off the pace and he is headed to the pit lane. Elliott powers around the outside. Michael McDowell pops a right front tire. Here's Martin Truex to the bottom. Blaney blocks him off too. Meanwhile, Chase Elliott went 4 wide on the back straightaway. They're side by side for the lead.
Hear it live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Nooga Radio, 92.7 FM, 95.3 HD4.
The voice of NASCAR.
Charge! Get back there, you dang Yankee! Great horny toads, I'm up north!
WBLZ HD4 Ottawa, W224AZ Chattanooga,
92.7 Digital FM 95.3 HD4 Chattanooga.
This is CBS News on the Hour, presented by Grasshopper.
I'm Pam Coulter. Facebook is on the hot seat following the disclosure that a data firm used by the Trump campaign mined the personal information of tens of millions of Facebook users. CBS's John Blackstone.
A Facebook spokesperson said today the entire company is outraged they were deceived by Cambridge Analytica, but lawmakers in both Congress and Britain's Parliament are holding Facebook responsible, and they want to hear directly from Mark Zuckerberg.
The CEO of Cambridge Analytica has been suspended, and prosecutors in New York, New Jersey, and Massachusetts are launching investigations. Via Skype, cyber scout Adam Levin says it's not so easy to leave Facebook.
You have to wait 90 days, and the truth is that you're not exactly sure that everything is deleted. But what's so interesting about Facebook, it's like Game of Thrones. Once you get deleted, it's as if you're in exile. You can't come back.
A fifth package bomb exploded at a FedEx shipping center near San Antonio. CBS's Omar Villafranca says one person was slightly injured.
A second suspicious package was located at another FedEx facility near Austin. FedEx released a statement saying the suspect shipped a second package that has now been secured and turned over to law enforcement.
And officials say that package did contain an explosive device. Investigators also confirmed these 2 packages are connected to the 4 previous package explosions. Authorities in St. Mary's County, Maryland, say there was a relationship between the 17-year-old Austin Rollins and the teenage girl he shot and seriously wounded at school. CBS's Jeff Pegues.
16-year-old Jalen Willie is fighting for her life. The 14-year-old boy who was shot in the leg, he is expected to survive. Investigators say that they have video of the shooting, and that will help them figure out exactly what happened.
Rollins was killed in a confrontation with the school security officer. Okay, it's officially spring, but don't take that too seriously. The Northeast is about to get hit by a 4th storm in just a few weeks.
Nearly 700 salt spreaders and 1,600 plow trucks are going into the battle against the 4th nor'easter. Office of Emergency Management Commissioner Joe Esposito doesn't want New Yorkers taking this spring storm lightly.
There is a potential here. You could have whiteout conditions tomorrow. They're talking about 1 to 2 inches per hour. Winds up to 45 miles per hour gusts. That's going to create dangerous conditions, and especially during tomorrow's afternoon rush hours.
And Sanitation Commissioner Catherine Garcia points out one of the worst snowstorms in New York City history, the blizzard of 1888, took place in March. Rich Lamb for CBS News, New York.
This is CBS News.
Grasshopper, the entrepreneur's phone system. Turn your mobile phone into a business phone system with Grasshopper. See how it works at grasshopper.com.
Every business needs great people, and a better way to find them. Something better than posting your job online and just praying for the right people to see it. ZipRecruiter knew there was a smarter way, so they built a platform that finds the right job candidates for you. ZipRecruiter learns what you're looking for, identifies people with the right experience, and invites them to apply to your job. In fact, 80% of employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site in just one day. And ZipRecruiter doesn't stop there. They even spotlight the strongest